So welcome to Beyond Barriers, and I'm Jeff Schoep with Jen Christ, and today our special guest is Grumpy Old Dude. Ed, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks for having me.
This is a follow-up. I want to thank you for having me on your program, and today, the conversation was so good, we want to have you on our program as well, and ask you some questions, pick your brain a little bit, and go from there. So if you could tell us a little bit about your history, from your origins, like where you came from as far as being involved in extremism, and a little bit about what you're doing now.
So just to let everybody know, my real name is Ed Schofield. I am one of the original members of State Prison Skinheads in New Jersey. I am also a former member of the World Church of the Creator under PM Matthew Hale. I was a skinhead for 20 years and a member of Creativity for a little over 8 years. About 9 years ago, a little over 9 years ago, I decided that I was done with the entire movement. Done with the religion, done with the hate, and I stepped away. Last year, my wife and I were talking, and she decided that I needed to become more of an activist. So I have then started my YouTube channel, Grumpy Old Dude, and I focus mainly on hate groups, and not just supremacist groups, but hateful religious groups like the NIFB, things like that. And I'm just trying to hopefully make a better world for everybody.
Well, we're really honored to have you on the program, and I know, we both know how difficult it is to, break free of hate and extremism, and to move forward with, everything. So we really think the world of you for having the courage to walk away and joining us here today, and all the work that we do. I know it's a tough road, and we're glad to have you. Jen, do you have any questions for Ed as well?
Hi, Ed, by the way. I'm interested to know if you feel lighter. Do you feel lighter without that in you? Like, for me, it was almost like a physical feeling. Like bricks were lifted off of me. Do you feel the same?
Yeah, most definitely. When I first got away from the church, from Creativity, it was almost as bad as my deconversion from Catholicism. I was giving up a piece of me, like a literal physical piece of me was leaving, and it was confusing for a while. I kind of felt a little bit lost. And then when I fully stepped away from the movement and decided I was no longer going to be a white supremacist, I was going to accept human beings as human beings, it just opened up so many doors for me. And I just felt this sense of relief, like I'm finally who I'm supposed to be.
Right,
I'm
exactly.
not this crazed mindset, want to smash everything warrior. And
Right.
now, don't get me wrong, I'm an old dude. The sign don't lie. I'm pushing 50. I'm pushing 50, but I still got some fight in me. But my fight, excuse me, my fight now is to, like I said, make a better world. Make a positive change instead of getting people in that mindset where it's us versus them. I want people to say it's all of us together trying to make a difference.
Right, exactly. That's excellent. What about another question I had for you was, you became involved because of when you were in prison, right? In jail?
Yeah.
Is that,
yeah.
That's what started?
I was arrested when I was 19 years old. I was an amateur MMA fighter. I just won a fight in Atlantic City, and we were on the way to my after fight party, and I ran into a guy, not going to say where or names or anything to protect the victim's family. He pulled the knife on me, and I used my fighting skill set to defend myself, and unfortunately he lost his life. And I was convicted of first-degree involuntary homicide. My original sentence was for 30 years, and they sent me to Trenton State Prison to start, and that's where I met members of World Church of Creator and started getting into that religion. And that's also where I got into State Prison Skinheads, which is a prison gang. It wasn't too much past my release date from prison that I completely stepped away from the movement. I was convicted in 1992, and I was released in 2004. And by 2005, I had just had enough. I couldn't do it anymore, and I stepped away. But I did still retain some of that ideology, just as an independent person, not belonging to any group or anything. 2012, I completely stepped away. I retired my gang patch. I cut off all ties with everybody in the movement for quite a while, until I started reaching out to them to try and, de-radicalize them and get them to follow me out of the movement, which sometimes it works. Most of the time they, kind of throw ad hominems at me and tell me they're not interested, but you got to try.
So when you were in jail, when you were in prison, did you feel like, I've always wondered this, because this is what I've heard on documentaries and things like that. But I've never ever had the chance, the opportunity to ask someone in that position. Did you feel like you had to join a group of your own race for protection? Is that something that you didn't really have much of a choice? Because that's what I've heard, but.
Some people, that's kind of why they do it. As for myself, I didn't feel that, I have a very, very significant background in martial arts. I have a black belt in Aikido, a black belt in Taekwondo, and a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu from Enzo Gracie.
Wow.
There's not very many people who can take me on and win. So
right.
My whole thing behind it was strictly the racism coming from people of color, members of the 5% Nation, members from Nation of Islam. And yes, in New Jersey, we do have Black Hebrew Israelites. So running into those groups in prison and being called a white devil and everything else, and them telling me that, all crackers need to die, that kind of pushed me to gravitate towards, the skinheads and Church of Creator. I was in that mindset, like, well, if you can't beat them, join them. And now that I've aged and I've matured and I've actually educated myself in some real science and history, I've decided that I can beat them. I can beat them with knowledge. So now I'm fighting back against all of those groups.
It's really interesting. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jen.
No, I was going to ask you, Jeff, doesn't that sound familiar about what we've been talking about? That's exactly what we're worried about happening right now currently.
It is, and it was a good question, and I'm really I'm interested in it. The response was really good too. So this is a really good dialogue we're having here, and I think it's interesting that you mentioned that, Ed, because there is some discussion now in the public, and I read Twitter way too much, unfortunately, but there is a lot of discussion now, and there's people that are basically saying, I have to be careful how I even word this, but a lot of people are saying that only white people can be racist, and that only, and I believe that's inherently incorrect, and I think it's racist to say that personally, and I don't care what flack I get for it. It's the truth. Sometimes the truth needs to be told, even if it's an uncomfortable truth. I've never I've never been one to bow down in the past, and I don't do it now either. But I think it's very important to be transparent. It's very important to tell the truth, and I think racism can go all different ways. Being the three of us having been part of the movement, we perpetuated racism in our lives, and we're all fighting against that now, which is incredibly important as well. And it's the other races have suffered greatly in this country, and we acknowledge that, and we want to uplift all people. But I think it's important, like what you pointed out, that it was racism that you experienced against yourself that drove you into the movement. If I'm incorrect or if I misunderstood that, please explain it a little further. But that was really interesting to hear from.
No, yeah, you're exactly right. It was racism, against me that drove me into that movement. But one thing I do want to clarify is that a lot of racist groups, and I don't know the numbers on it. I'm sorry, I should have did my homework a little better, but almost every hate group that I've covered so far has some kind of background in a religion. And I think it's this religious ideology that they twist to their own narrative, saying we are the chosen people and therefore we can dominate others. And that needs to stop. That's one of the key things that's so hard to get people away from. Religious indoctrination is
Powerful.
A horrendous thing. And I tell people all the time, and I battle back and forth with theists, not just Christians, but Muslims and Jews too, that every religion that I have ever looked at in some way has been harmful and dangerous, especially when it creates a hate group.
Well, and I'm going to go to Jen with a question here in just a second, but it's a good thing to point out that religion can be incredibly polarizing, but for some people it can also be incredibly helpful. Like religion helps some people, be better people, and it's a two-edged sword. It can be very bad for some people because it can be used to hate or oppress other people, and we've seen that throughout history and time, where it's from the Crusades to the pagans fighting the Christians, to the Muslims and the Christians fighting, and the Jews fighting with the different religions, and so on and so forth. And like Jen's background, her father was involved in Aryan nations and was a Christian identity minister, if I'm correct. And could you tell us just a little bit about that background and how polarizing religion can be in that sense, Jen?
Yeah, in my case, it was extremely polarizing. And as you said, he was the Christian identity minister, became one of the most well-known ones in the Christian identity sect or movement. And when I think back, it was extremely hateful. I'm not a fan personally of organized religion. And when I look at it, I think that it's more spirituality that helps people. It's more of that than the actual certain laws and rules when it comes to religion. For us, for Christian identity, it was the hate came in where they would twist it and sometimes slip things in that weren't even really in there against the Jews. And you were involved in that for a brief time, correct?
Yeah, I was involved too a little while for a couple years in the Christian identity as well. So I do have a pretty good understanding of it. And what's interesting, and I don't remember if Ed and I talked about it on the show the other day or not, but or what conversation it was. But in Christian identity, like, the belief is that the white people are the chosen of God and the other races are are of the devil. They believe that the Jews are of the devil, and the other blacks were the beasts of the field, and all these biblical references. And the interesting thing about the Bible, and I'm not bashing the Bible, I have a lot of good, really close friends that are Christians, and I do a lot of work with the Christian community as well. So I'm not definitely not lambasting anybody there, but as Ed mentioned, like the Hebrew Israelites was, that's a black organization that, to me, I met the Hebrew Israelites, met some of those guys back in the 90s, originally in the early 90s, when I first got involved in the movement. And the best way I could explain that religion is it's the black people's version of Christian identity. It's almost identical, except they have different readings of the verses. And that's the interesting thing about the Bible. It is a book of history. It's also a book of, parables and things like that. And because the way it's written in the parables, everyone has different interpretations. That's why I have Catholics, Lutherans, all these different Baptists and different outlooks on that. And people interpret those things their own way. And then sometimes things get lost in the translations, and it complicates things. So literally a person can take a book that was meant for positive purposes, and they can twist it into their own ideology, white supremacy, black supremacy, or many other things, other strange cults and sects of the religion. So religion can certainly be a divisive, polarizing thing for a lot of people if it's misused in that manner.
Yeah, and that's why I brought up the point that these leaders of these so-called religions twist that doctrine to fit their own narrative, and that's something that we need to try and steer people away from. And I've told plenty of theists, like I said, of all different religions, like, listen, you can hold on to that religion. If you need that to get through your life, that's fine. But where in that religion does it say you can kill off anybody of a different race? If that's what your religion is, it's a hate group. Because you say your religion is a religion of peace and love, you need to project that.
Absolutely. And I think it's incredibly important. There's a lot of people that don't want to hear these discussions, and this program, as for anyone that's watched it, knows that Jen and I tackle some pretty controversial subjects sometimes, and some subjects that'll give us a little bit of heat, and we get our share of threats, and we also get our share, a lot of good compliments and ideas, and the flow of dialogue and ideas here. That's what this program is all about. And I want to say, like, this isn't an interview. We want this to be like a conversation and a free flow of ideas. And that's not just for Ed, Jen, and I, but for anybody that joins the program or that sends us ideas on topics and things like that. We really enjoy the open dialogue, because it helps us learn. We're all still learning. None of us believe that we have all the answers, that we know everything, because we certainly don't. We're learning, and we're trying to. The whole idea of the program is to try to reach others and learn from them.
So can I ask you a question that might kind of hit you in the feels a little bit?
Sure. For Jen or for myself?
For you. After our little discussion last night, how do you view that slogan of all lives matter?
Oh boy. Oh boy. Nothing like stirring up the controversy again here. This is a subject that and it's probably I'm kind of glad you asked that, Ed, because there was a viewer of the program on your channel that had said that they didn't like the answer, or something to that effect about that statement, because and I've seen a lot of that. And actually I was after we had that excellent discussion yesterday, I was looking into that concept a little more and seeing where other people stood on it and different things like that. And a lot of it, I think, has to do with the way people misunderstand things. Like the All Lives Matter thing is considered by a lot of people racist. And I was having this discussion with my assistant yesterday as well. The White Lives Matter thing a few years ago when that, a number of years ago when that came out, and we saw it was mostly, I was in the movement at the time, and I know our organization, the organization I was a part of at the time, pushed the White Lives Matter narrative, and so did a lot of other groups. So a lot of people that are involved in White Lives Matter is people that are involved in the movement. But the slogan in and of itself is not racist, in my opinion. I don't think that's racist. Now, are white nationalists and racist groups pushing that narrative? Absolutely. But saying it is not racist. And why I say that is because if that's what that does is it I believe that it causes more polarization, because you're taking for, I understand the concept, Black Lives Matter, absolutely, and I'm in support of that. Now, there's different nuances of the Black Lives Matter movement that I do disagree with, like that, and now we're going to even get more controversial, but I saw some of the tenets from the movement where they were saying that they are a Marxist movement and they follow some tenets of Marxism, and I absolutely disagree with Marxism on any level, any way, shape, or form. But like the conversation that you and I had last night, could you, just for the viewing audience, could you say that again? Because for me, it helped me to see and understand a little bit better where some of people on that side are coming from. And it was a really good analogy. I really think that the viewers should hear it and understand it.
Okay, so everyone, is pushing the whole Black Lives Matter, BLM. And the reason they're doing that, as opposed to All Lives Matter, can be simplified like this. If I say, hey, my house is on fire, can you guys come help me? And you respond to me, well, Ed, all houses matter. That kind of, puts me on the spot that I'm just defending myself with no backup. So, as Jeff said, all lives do matter. But at this point in America's history, Black lives are in bigger jeopardy than everyone else right now. Now, as far as the whole Marxist thing, I know people that do not agree with that. That they do not want to be in the far left Marxist, Antifa, communist, group. They're simply asking for the same treatment as everyone else, which they deserve. They're Americans just like everybody else. So they deserve to be treated like Americans and not second-class citizens. But again, that's the analogy. If your house is on fire and everyone says, well, all houses matter, what are you going to do?
No, it's a great analogy, and for me, it was a little bit of a light bulb to understanding that.
I saw it when it went off too.
That was really good. That was really good. But the other side, and because I often talk about being fair and trying to understand all sides of things, and this is where my thinking pattern can get controversial for some people, because they're not. I think they're sometimes not listening, or they're not wanting to hear this. But because I spent so long involved in the white nationalist movement, and I understand how they think and how I thought at the time as well, which I don't feel that way anymore. But because I understand that thinking, and I'm sure you guys get it too, 100%. But what I'm in the process of trying to be fair and everything, and I don't disagree with anything that you said, and I do believe I'm 100% that everyone in this country, I don't care if you're black, brown, or anything in between, that we all should be on an equal footing. And another controversial thing that came up in this, I guess where I was going with that is I'm saying that a lot of people that are not black, they're looking at it like, well, how come my life doesn't matter? Even though I do understand both sides, they're seeing it as, why should, and it's maybe not even a correct analogy, but this is how they feel. I'm saying this is how other people feel when they hear that. They're like, well, why are just black people important, but my people aren't? And I've heard this even from I have a couple of friends that are in the trans, individuals, and they're saying like the number of murders and attacks on trans people are even greater than the per capita, even greater than the attacks on black people. So their argument is, how come, we're being victimized, the trans people are saying they're being victimized even more so than the black community. So why isn't there this big movement for them? So all of a sudden now you're having, and that's just one group of people. There's Hispanics that'll say the same thing, like, hey, we're being killed on a massive scale in this country too. And what I'm seeing, looking at that from the big picture, and this is where I'm seeing it. I'm not looking at it from I have to defend white people. I did that for 27 years. I'm not doing that anymore. But I'm looking at it from the big picture, where people are feeling left out, and whether that's real or imagined, that's how their minds work. They're feeling left out, like they're meaningless. And what I'm seeing, and I'd like your guys' thoughts on this too, because I'm kind of over talking now, but what I'm seeing is, I feel like some of the environment that's going on now is actually creating more racism, because we're pointing out race so much, and we're saying this is happening to this group of people. It's actually polarizing incredibly large segments of the population in the United States, because we are this melting pot and we have all these different races. And I feel like it's actually making racial matters worse, and we're seeing extremists kind of latch on to what were really good causes, for righteous causes, and they're twisting them to fit their narratives. If you could both, Jen, I'll let maybe go first on that.
I agree. I think that just to continue to point out race constantly, that's going to keep that division there. The whole thing is quite frustrating for me, to be honest with you, because I see exactly what's going on, and people who are stuck in this, as you call it, an echo chamber on the right, that's what's going on with the left. And they don't, you know what it is? I think it's a lot of cognitive dissonance. That's what it comes down to. They do not want to hear any other explanations of anything. This is the way it is, and they're just completely like in this trance. And until that can be broken, I'm not sure how it's going to stop. You just keep picking out, colors constantly, and it's just going to go on and on and on. I really don't know how to get through to people completely.
Yeah. I have quite a few trans friends and LGBTQ friends in the circle I'm involved with on YouTube, and they are being, greatly oppressed. The Supreme Court just passed some laws that set them back by decades. And as far as Hispanics and Latinos in this country, yeah, they are, in just as much danger as, Black people in this country. I think what it comes down to is Hispanics and Latinos weren't necessarily a part of slavery. And that's kind of why I think they didn't get, included in this movement. And as far as LGBTQ, that I think BLM, organizers viewed that as its own separate entity. I don't necessarily know if, I agree with their ideology behind that, I guess. Like, I think they should have included all minorities. I think that would actually be a better name for this movement, is Minority Lives Matter. I don't know if anybody's going to give me any heat for that. I really don't care. But I think as a whole, minority lives should be their movement, not just, Black lives. It should be all minorities, together to fight against the systemic racism and oppression that we have in this country. And I honestly believe that until we change our politics in this country and get rid of outdated things like the Electoral College and this two-party system and start electing more minorities, we're not really ever going to see any true equality in this country. We need to take the power away from the rich ruling class, like when this country first started, because nobody that was in our government back then was really part of the elite class. I mean, some of them were, but for the majority, they weren't. They weren't even considered, British citizens, and they fought for this country to be free. And in my honest opinion, I think we need to have more, people that aren't uber rich and that do come from a minority background, so they can present those ideas and say, hey, this is how we'd like to be treated. This is what you can do to help us. And this is what you can do to stop oppressing us. And I think that's the only way this country is ever going to evolve out of this state of madness.
And I have a question for you too, on that. And I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit, but I also, so for example, the area I live in here in Detroit, the whites are the minority here in this city quite substantially. And if we're looking at racial demographics, and I haven't checked this for a while because I'm out of the movement, but the racial demographics in the country were leaning towards, in our lifetimes anyways, in the near future, that whites would be a minority or close to a minority in the country. And in a lot of parts of the country, they are the minority. So I feel like, again, like I said, I'm playing devil's advocate here, but when, again, if we were to say minority lives matter, we're still going to have people from the white community, and I'm not operating as a spokesperson for the white community here. I'm being very careful in how I say this, but there's people in the white community that will feel that's polarized. There's people in the white community that will say, hey, we never had privilege. The people in Appalachia that are growing up dirt poor, and some of them have dirt floors, in their homes, or don't have cable TV and all that kind of stuff, and they've literally lived off the land. They would, and I'm being the counter argument here, that it still leaves somebody out of the equation. And I'd be saying that whether I was white, black, brown, Asian, etc. I try not to see, we all see colors, but I try not to judge people based on their race, their religion, or any of that, but based on their character. And I feel like if someone's left out of this equation, or feels left out of the equation, that in itself can cause polarization. And what do you guys think on that?
Well, let me see if I can simplify a little bit what I was trying to say. When I say minority lives, I don't just mean people from certain walks of life or certain races or genders or anything like that. When I say minority lives, I mean the actual majority, if you think about it. but the majority of our political system is made up of people that come from money. And nobody can deny that. If you don't have money backing you, you're not getting into politics. You're not going to get elected. So
I know where you're going with this. Are you talking about the establishment?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that we need to be a communist country and overthrow the government. We need to legally start promoting people that come from middle and low class areas and backgrounds, and people of different genders, and more people of, Black and Hispanic and Native American cultures. And we need to elect them to federal positions so they can oversee everybody. And when somebody puts out an idea that is going to cause harm to others, everybody else can step in and say, hey, wait a minute, that's going to hurt my people and our movement. You can't do that. I think that's the only way we are ever going to truly have a fair government, is if we have people from every class system and every walk of life in our federal government.
And so what you're talking about, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is more of and I would 100% agree on this point. This is a class struggle, and this is the thing that I felt like, even when at the time when I was in the movement, that in the sense of being brainwashed, like we placed the blame when we were in the movement and said, well, it's all the Jews, it's all the Blacks, it's all these different people, but really, it's like we missed the boat completely, and we're focusing on all these racial issues when really it was a class struggle. You have the haves and the have-nots. You have the rich that are controlling the narrative, that have kept the average person of all races. I'm not even going, saying we should have to have the different races in these positions, but that all people have this opportunity, whether you're a poor white person, a poor Black person, a poor Native, poor Asian, middle class. Everyone should have this ability to make a difference. And the counter argument will be, oh, well, we can all do that. We can all run for office, Jeff. We can all do that because that's America. But it's not realistic. The average person doesn't have this huge amount of money that it costs to promote and do all these different things. So I really think that it's more of a class struggle than a racial struggle. I believe that they want us, and this is again controversial, but I believe that the elites, the people that are controlling the money, that are controlling the system, they want all of the races to be pitted against each other in some manner, because it keeps the people in place. It keeps them complacent. It keeps them fighting with each other instead of bumping heads, white and Black and all the other races fighting with each other and arguing over genders and religions and all this sort of thing. This is like what keeps the world going around and round and round. We're all pitted against each other when really it's someone up at the top, not someone, but the elites pulling the strings of everybody else.
It's the establishment wanting to keep us divided. Because could you imagine
exactly
a country or even a world that humans came together as one to fight the beast system?
Yeah.
They wouldn't be able to control us anymore. So they don't want that to happen, period.
What you're talking about is something that I learned in my very short time in military school, but also being an Army brat, is the military tactic of divide and conquer.
Yep, exactly.
And that's simply what it is. As long as they keep us divided.
So many people don't see that. And that's what frustrates me the most.
Yeah, it's hard to convey that, and I get it. I grew up poor myself. I mean, my dad was in the military for 27 years. We didn't have crap because the military doesn't pay. I'm going to tell you right now.
Yeah.
But I get it from people coming from, these areas, like especially where Jeff's at, Detroit. For a long time, Detroit was turning into a ghost town, and you know, when you grow up like that and you're like, there's no way out, you know, I have no money to get out of here. I have no voice. So now they have these different groups banding together to create a voice, but they're all talking over one another. And we have to try, we have to try and figure out some way to get everybody to come together and speak as one whole, like Jen said.
Absolutely. We'd be able to move mountains.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that's a big part of the struggle here. And I think most people, if they hear it and they think about it and look at it from this rational viewpoint that we're talking about, then they go, really, it's not about race. It wasn't the Jews. It wasn't the blacks. It wasn't the whites. It wasn't the Asians. It wasn't the Indians. But these are things that affect all of us. And I know it's a happy way to look at the world, and it sure feels a lot better tackling these issues being out of the movement than in it. But it's the truth. And if we can all come together as one people, as humans, you know, I've often thought about like the simplistic thing, like from the movies, you know, where like Independence Day, where the aliens are attacking and the whole world comes together. Oh my gosh, we've got to defend the earth and fight back against these alien invaders coming from outer space, you know. And it's kind of a silly concept. I mean, hey, a wise man considers the possibility anything, but that would be a whole nother show to talk about if there's life on other planets. So we'll stay away from that one on this episode. But really, though, like the whole concept, like that's something that can unite the world. And we do have, you know, that's maybe it could happen, it could not, but we have real issues that as humanity as a whole, just race, religion, all that doesn't matter. Let's, for a moment, let's pretend none of that matters. And say, as protecting the earth, you know, green policies, things, you know, our natural resources are being depleted. There's things that are being put in our foods, chemicals in our foods that are causing people to have all kinds of health problems and issues like that. And unless you have a lot of money and can afford to eat the all organic diet, which most of us can't, you know, you're getting literally poisoned in some ways. These are things that affect all of humanity. We have people in this world that are still starving in different parts of the globe. We have real issues about our resources being depleted, about the ice melting and causing higher water levels. We've got countries that are literally disappearing underwater, like in I want to say it's the Maldives, somewhere there, and you know, places like that, because of the whole climate is changing. These are things like all of humanity should be working on, but we're sitting here fighting with each other over this person's racist or that's racist, or I don't like this, you know, this thing or that. And by all means, when I say that, I'm not trying to diminish the cause of the movement, and I certainly am not diminishing what, you know, kicked off this latest series of like what happened to George Floyd was hideous. It was disgusting, and the law needs to come down on the people that were involved in that, and Breonna Taylor's death, and so on and so forth. We could go on and on and on. And you know, we do want justice for those people, but I'm saying there's other things that we as humanity, as human beings, despite race, religion, and all that we should be tackling. And it's dialogue like this where some of these ideas can get out, and maybe, you know, hopefully these discussions, we're all learning from each other, but hopefully our viewing audience also takes something away from this and goes, you know what, that's right, we shouldn't be focused on hating our neighbors or fighting people because they have a different religion or a different race. Like these are serious issues that need to be tackled in our lifetimes, or our children and our children's children aren't going to have a future like we have now. I mean, there's a lot of issues that really need to be tackled.
Yeah. One thing that I've spoken about with some of the other people on YouTube that I associate with is a lot of people kind of feel that everyone in this country, every American citizen, should have the same rights that George Washington had. And I thought about that for a moment, and I was like, wow, you know, that would be absolutely amazing if we got rid of, you know, 2/3 of the laws that we've passed since the time of George Washington and said, okay, here's the original laws and everybody gets them. And if somebody violates them, they go to jail. And I was like, you know what? That would be amazing. I don't know what we have to do to get our government to understand that, especially with, and I don't care who's against it, I cannot stand our president. Every time he opens his mouth, I smack myself in the head. You know, but if we can get enough people in Congress and in the White House and everything else to understand, we're tired. You know, you have a choice here. You can either make this right or we're going to get rid of every one of you. And I keep pushing for everybody. If you're going to vote, vote independent across the board. Send a message. We're voting for the little guy. Get out. We're done.
Jen, your thoughts?
Why do you got to do that to me, Jeff? I
It's
guess
a conversation. I'm not doing anything. I'm just talking. I just thought you were quiet for a few minutes. We should bring you in.
Gotta edit that out.
No, it's good. It's good.
I don't really want to get off on the Trump thing.
Oh, well, you don't have to comment on that. I mean, if you have other questions, you know, I mean, I think it was a statement that he was making anyways. It wasn't really a question. So.
I mean, I can't stand him either. I just didn't want to go out there.
Right. I try to be careful with it too, because we are trying to reach across the aisles, even in the political spectrum, with the Democrats and the Republicans. And I've been doing interviews and different things over the past couple of weeks, and I feel like some of the interviewers are trying to bait me a little bit by saying, you know, like, well, Trump is responsible for this, the Republicans are responsible for that, and placing blame. And those, all three of us had spent a lot of time involved in the white nationalist movement, and a lot of finger pointing and accusing and things like that. Wow. So I try to so hard to, even though there's things as well that I think that the president says that I don't agree with, but I try really hard not to put everyone in a box or say, well, it's all his fault, or it's all the Republicans' fault, or it's all the Democrats' fault.
Right. Same here, yeah.
And that just goes back to that whole trying to be fair and
well, I'm going to be fair, and I'm going to blame both Democrats and Republicans.
Exactly.
That's fair enough. Yeah, that's fair.
I want the liberals to remember something. Donald Trump was a registered Democrat until he decided to run for president. And now he's a Republican. So
it is a two-headed snake as far as I'm concerned.
Yep. And that's why I put that out there, that I'd like to see everybody vote independent across the board. State elections and federal elections. Vote independent and send a message. We're putting in the little guys because you couldn't handle it, and we're done.
We do see like
this is a political issue. It's what's going on. When you dig deep and get down to the root of the matter, it's all political. It's all political.
It's
very evil.
I'm sorry.
Very evil. I don't think I should keep going.
No, please go. Keep going.
No, I can't. Jeff, stop.
And it's, you know, we say we're trying to avoid the politics and stuff like that, but sometimes you can't. And you know, I do think it is, both parties are to blame. They're certainly both not innocent, and they're certainly both not fully guilty either. But I think it's definitely a very interesting conversation, and we do have a lot of you know, we're seeing in this country right now like a complete lack of leadership, I think, across the boards. And I feel like, you know, you know, maybe some people don't want to hear me saying that, but I feel like, as you know, leading the National Socialist movement for 25 years, I know a couple things about leadership. I know how to build an organization. I built an organization that was small when I joined, up into the largest group of its kind in the country. So I know a few things about leadership, and I know what I see right now going on in society is lacking leadership on all sides. Like, no one is taking responsibility for the chaos that's going on in the country right now, and you know, one side's making excuses for it, and the other side is you know, doing the same thing, you know, as part of their own narratives. And I think we are seeing right now is a really interesting time in our lifetimes and in United States history, where so many interesting or distressing things, stressful things are happening in the country right now, like we haven't seen in our lifetimes. So and I do think there's a lack of leadership right now, and we need different people in office. Yeah, I'm not pointing fingers at any specific people, but just I always say not to use a broad brush, but in this case, I feel like it's a broad brush, that there's so little leadership, and we really need some in this country.
It blows my mind what's been going on, even since the COVID hit. It's I can't believe what I see. It's nothing makes sense at all with any of it.
Well,
and then
Jen,
start fighting over that, the whole mask or no mask, and this and that, and it's like, what about freedom? Just personally, I have to wear a mask when I go out. I have medical conditions that if I catch something like that, or you know, or anything else super bad, it could kill me. So I'm gonna protect myself. And as soon as that, and I know I'm going off on a tangent here now, you know, talking about COVID, but it's just kind of the mentality that certain people are attacking. You don't know someone's story if you see them out and they have a mask on. You have no idea. And they're just, these people are coming at others that choose to wear a mask with such hate, calling them names. I've been called a snowflake for the first time in my entire life since this all started. And that just comes right back down to no one has any respect for anyone else, just kindness and compassion and love anymore. Everyone's judging everybody.
Well, I'm glad Jen brought up the whole COVID subject, just to let anybody out there know that thinks this is a hoax. I had COVID. It is not nice. You do not want to get it. So you can either wear a mask or you can take your chances, because I guarantee you, when you get it, if you don't die from it, you're going to wish you were. It's bad. Trust me.
That's what a lot of people say that have had it. Yeah. And you don't ever know. I mean, yeah, some people may get it and be okay. You know, they don't, you know, they have a better immune system or whatever, but you know, I don't know. There's just the judgment going around is ridiculous.
Well, as far as like messaging and what we can do as formers, I think you know, coming away from the interview, and as we're getting close to the end of our program here right now, messaging going forward. How can we all give back? I feel like part of giving back, and I feel like because us three specifically, and so many others that were part of the movement, like we have a responsibility, and that's what I know, that's what fuels me, and I'm pretty sure it's what fuels you guys as well, that you know, we're trying to make a difference. We want to improve this country. We don't want the races pitted at each other, because you know, we were all engaged in that ourselves, and we learned from, you know, age, wisdom, experience, time, and all these sort of things, that it's unhealthy, it's not good, it's not good for your health, it's not good for your mental health, your physical health, to be involved in these type of polarizing subjects, or involved in extremism of any kind. And you know, pushing forward, I want to say, you know, for me, it's a real honor to know both of you and all of the others that are you know, out here trying to make a difference and that are not race baiting or not on the extreme fringes of the movement on the far left or the far right, or involved in religious extremism. And for those people that are there, we're not turning our backs on you either. We understand it. We were extremists ourselves before, and we want to help, and we want you to know that there's options. There's people like you that you can talk to. Reach out to us at Beyond Barriers. Get a hold of us through our websites, and you know, both of you, if you want to promote your individual channels, please do so. But you know, we're here for you. All of us are here for you, and the rest of the team at Beyond Barriers, and we're assembling quite a team of former extremists right now, and we're here to help. That's what we do, and by talking about these controversial subjects that we're talking about, we're not doing it to make people angry or to try to make things worse or trigger people or set people off. And I realize that there's things that we say that sometimes, you know, especially with the way polarization is right now, it makes certain people really upset. Dial it back, man. If you're feeling triggered or you're feeling angry, dial it back and put yourself in that other person's shoes. And that's, I mean, one of the things that helped me de-radicalize and get out of the movement was understanding the so-called other, understanding the person or the people that you believe you're fighting against, and realizing they're really no different. They just have different skin colors or different religions or different ideas in a lot of cases. So let's not be those people. Let's not be the one, you know, that's causing that polarization. Let's be better, and let's keep the mission forward. And anyone that wants to reach out to us, we're here to help. And if you guys your summaries as well, I'd really like to hear that.
Am I up?
Go ahead, Jen.
I was just going to say, I obviously work with Jeff with Beyond Barriers. I also have Strength Over Evil, but my story is more than just coming from the hate. I'm a childhood sexual abuse survivor of 13 years, and if there's anyone out there that needs to talk, that they've been through it and they just need to talk, I'm always available. You can reach me on Facebook through my page. You can find me on Facebook through Jen Kreis, my personal page. You can just reach me through Jeff as well.
All right. I guess it's my turn. So again, I'm Ed Schofield, a.k.a. the Grumpy Old Dude. If you go to my YouTube channel and scroll over to the About section, you can find links to my Twitter, Facebook, and my Gmail. If you look under the business section for email, you can definitely get in touch with me on there. Anybody looking to leave any kind of hate group, I don't care what it is, I'm always open to talk. You can get in touch with me. And I would also like to say that if there's somebody coming out of prison and you're having a hard time coping with, you know, society, get in touch with me. I've been there and done that. You know, I spent 12 and a half years behind bars. I know how hard that transition can be. And instead of falling into one of these groups that we've been discussing, please reach out to somebody like me or Jeff before you do that. You know, we can probably help you figure out how to get back on your feet. Maybe me more so, because I did that on my own when I got out of prison. So, you know, it's always open. Other than that, I have my YouTube channel and my Patreon channel. You can find all those links in my About section again on my YouTube. So I just hope that everybody can kind of try and latch on to this idea, this symbol right here, this H, that is all colors but no colors. We are all one human race. And if we can come together as that, we can make a difference.
Thank you so much for being on the program, Ed. It's great to have you on here, brother. And anybody that's out there listening, you know, please hit like on our channels and on Grumpy Old Dude's channel, on Jen's channel, and subscribe. And if you like the content, you know, support us in our efforts and what we're doing with Beyond Barriers. And thanks again, everyone, for joining us again tonight.